Dr. Hargens, Board Chair David Jones Jr., and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we have the honor of receiving 2 student demonstrations of learning from and recognizing some of our district's most creative, academically talented, and distinguished students. We begin with the recognition of Grace Davis, a student at Great House Chirac Traditional Elementary School, who is one of 2 top Kentucky youth selected to receive the Prudential Spirit of Community Award. In honor of her outstanding volunteer service, Grace received a $1,000 award and an engraved silver medallion and an all-expenses-paid trip in early May to Washington, D.C. for 4 days of national recognition events. Grace raised more than $140,000 over the past 4 years to care for babies born prematurely by distributing piggy banks to students in her community and encouraging them to fill them up. Her idea for her volunteer project came to her when she saw a piggy bank in someone's home and a child feeding it change until it was full. Board Chair David Jones Jr. and Assistant Superintendent Michelle Dillard, please come forward to congratulate Grace. Joining in the recognition is her principal and parent, Carla Davis. Please come forward. Next, we have the honor of receiving a student demonstration of learning from and recognizing Slaughter Elementary School students for winning second-place honors in the Kentucky VEX IQ robotics competition. The school also earned enough points in the state competition to compete in the 2016 VEX Worlds competition. Slaughter Elementary students will share what they have learned by participating in the robotics competition and will provide a demonstration of their work with robotics. Before the Slaughter students begin their presentation, we will have an opportunity to view their video.
3, 2, 1. All right, guys. We got a claw bot here trying to pick up some balls. So far, there's 2 awesome song bots. Look at you go. Alright. 2 more. Here we go. Oh, maybe 3. Here we go. 2 more. Clear that ramp. Clear that ramp. Did you guys switch Alright, got 2 more coming in over here. Guys, you got 19, 18, 17, 16. All right, both of you on that ramp. Come on, let's go ahead and stay up, stay
All right, we are started off. All 4 robots are moving. Looks like one of them is about to clear cleared them, both of them are cleared them, awesome. We're getting good. They're getting good, guys. I can see them. Amazing. They're doing amazing. All right, so these teams have just got their robots this year. So switch, driver switch. So we're about to get a double here.
Go, Card!
We're going for a double. We're doing a reset. So we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, great job. Great job, guys.
Thank you. Students Jacqueline Garcia, Carlos Oresto Gomez, Carmen Martinez, Christopher Garcia Gonzalez, and Miguel Guerrero, please come forward to begin your presentation.
This was Slaughter's first year with the robotics team. We also started in September, and we worked really hard and learned a lot. We competed in the VEX IQ division. We built a robot that can carry balls over the fence, knock balls off the ramp, and park a robot onto the ramp. We built the robot to complete these tasks. On the we learned about the STEM topics: science, technology, engineering, and math. My teammates will tell you more about that.
We use engineering design process. We thought about what we need a robot to do. We made plans. We built the robot. We test and made improvements to the design. We really had it to work on the basket design. We designed several a basket holds 6 balls. We thought about how many balls it could hold. We we thought how much weight too heavy and it will tip over. We test each design until we found the best one.
We use a lot of technology in robotics. We have learned about programming, like for example, first we learned about coding using a website called code.org. Programming is using codes to tell the robot what to do. Then we use what we learned to program the robot to do certain tasks. We figured out how long it took the robot to travel through one box on the field. We also needed to think about how much power to use. For example, 50% of the power went straight but wasn't as fast. 100% of the power didn't always go straight. We had to determine angles and turns, like how many rotations of the motor for each type of turn it made. We also used maths in robotics. We worked with angles in programming terms. We also used decimals when programming how far we needed the robot to drive. We had to consider the weight of the basket and also the actual robot because it was important when driving up the ramp. We had learned a lot this year, not only about technology, math, and engineering, but also good sportsmanship. We have competed against some really good schools. It has been a great experience. The Swatterbots won the regional competition. We placed second in state championship. Now we're heading to the Vex Worlds competition. Thank you for letting us come tonight and tell you a bit about our team.
Board Member Dr. Lisa Wilner and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Paige Hartstern, please come forward to congratulate these outstanding students. Joining in the recognition is their teacher, Brittany Armstrong, and Principal Kathy Pendleton. We also have the pleasure of receiving a student demonstration of learning from Mukhan Venakatakrishnan, a DuPont Manual High School student, on his combined hearing test and hearing aid invention that cost $60. He came up with the idea because his grandfather, who lives in India, has hearing loss. It took Mukhan more than 1 year to create and test the device. He also wrote the computer code for the device. The device is not only cost effective, but it also gets rid of the need of a doctor to test the hearing of patients. The device tests and programs itself to be the hearing aid for the patient. Mukhan was presented with the opportunity to share his invention at the 3rd annual JCPS Idea Festival, which is student-led and student-oriented. Mukhan, please come forward to begin your presentation.
Yeah, I'm Mukhan. I go to DuPont Manual High School. I'm a junior there. And today I'll be telling you a little bit about these devices. So.
Mukhan, you may want to pull the microphone up to you a little bit more. Okay. Great.
So, like was just mentioned, the idea came from my grandfather. So I don't know if you can tell, but that's me and that's my grandfather. Me a few years ago. So my father has hearing loss. He lives in India, and I'm sure a lot of you know it takes a while for people to admit they have hearing loss. But once he did, we started finding treatment options, and it was really hard to find. Finding an audiologist is difficult, and then once you get there in India, they rip you off. And so the entire experience really prompted me to look into the issue of hearing loss a lot more. And what I found blew me away. 360 million people today suffer from hearing loss in the world, and out of that, 324 million people are untreated for that hearing loss. So putting that in perspective, the U.S. population is 316 million people. So there are more people untreated for their hearing loss than there are people in the entire United States. And that's primarily because of two problems: affordability and accessibility to auditory health care. So let's break that down. The affordability comes primarily from the hearing aids. So hearing aids today cost $1,500 for a pair, and that's an average price. So obviously there's a lot more expensive, a lot less expensive, but $1,500 is pretty standard. Keeping that in mind, the median income in India is $616 a year. So a person can save all their money, spend nothing for 2 years, and they still wouldn't be able to afford a full pair of hearing aids. In terms of accessibility, so these numbers over here, these are the number of doctors per 1,000 people for some developed countries. So you can see a standard is pretty much 2 doctors per 1,000 people. That's a developed nation's number. India's is 0.7, Bolivia 0.4, and then Liberia's is less than 0.2. So obviously accessibility to healthcare is a problem. And these are normal doctors. Audiologists are much more specialized and much more difficult to find. So you can pretty much half these numbers, and that's what you're looking at. So why does this matter? Hearing loss has 3 main impacts. The functional impact, so they're not able to do normal things in society. For example, can you imagine driving without hearing loss, not being able to hear a siren, going to the groceries, not being able to hear a cashier, stuff like that. The societal impact, people are really ostracized, and that was really what got my grandfather. So the long distance calls from India are as it is patchy, and then you take into account the hearing loss, and it's basically impossible to understand anything. And finally, the economic impact. Especially in developing areas where jobs are mainly manufacturing, you need your hearing to be a productive economic member of society. So hearing loss and its treatment are really comprised of 2 components. The hearing test, which measures how much hearing loss a patient has, and that requires the presence of a doctor, and then the hearing aid, which actually treats that hearing loss. So keeping that in mind, I started looking for a solution. How do I solve this problem of affordability and accessibility? But it's a really daunting task. Like, how do you make a hearing aid from scratch and eliminate the doctor and make it cheap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I started by looking at my broad goals. I wanted to reduce the price and make the user completely self-reliant. That's a euphemism for get rid of the doctor. Sorry to any doctors in the audience. Those are my broad goals. But obviously, you can't really work towards a technical goal when these are your goals. So I had to break it down further. So I needed to work for hardware, so hardware would reduce the cost of the device, and then the software would, again, replace the doctor. Again, still pretty difficult to solve. So I got it down to my final steps. The signal processor, which is a specialized piece of hardware that is made to take in audio signals and manipulate them however you program it. And finally, the code, which is the software, and that would be able to replace the doctor, run the hearing aid, run the hearing test, etc. So I started with the hardware. I tested. These are the names of these devices. These are 3 digital signal processors, or 4 digital signal processors I tested, and I tested them to see if they were able to support a hearing aid based on a few criteria I devised from studying how hearing aids work today. And I found my hardware. It's the Teensy 3.1. It's completely open source. It's $15, and it's a super powerful processor. You can run pretty much anything on it, and I guess I'll show you in a sec. That's actually what's on those devices right there. It's a small rectangular board on the top. So I assembled the hardware. This was my first prototype, and I took an audio jack. You can see it. It's the black thing right there, 3.5 millimeter, the same one on your phone, and that's where the audio comes out from. So I put together the hardware, the digital signal processor, but that was only half of the solution. The much harder part was the software. How do I replace a human being, run a hearing test, run a hearing aid, all with software I write? So I got started. So this is the completed software. This is part of the completed software. The actual software did not fit on 4 slides, so I put some of it on here. So I'll go through a few parts of it. What I'm about to show you are functions. Functions are basically little pieces of code that do a job. That's all they are. So this function is called the play file function. So for a hearing test, in the doctor's office, they play sounds to you and see if you can hear them or not, and that's what this piece of code does. So it takes a sound file and it plays it back to the user, and then they enter whether they can hear the sound or not on the 2 buttons on that device. That's basically the bulk of the hearing test. The calibration function, this is actually a pretty cool piece of code. So a real hearing test is run in a soundproof booth, but obviously I cannot sell a soundproof booth. So what I did was I loaded the sound of my dad's hands rubbing onto the device, and then the user rubs their hand at the same time and until the volume matches. And that way the device is calibrating for ambient noise. It's just a simple way to get it set to the right level. And And then finally, this is probably the most important chunk of code in the whole thing. This is the mixed gain function, and it determines how much amplification the device provides based on how much hearing loss the patient has. So this is the doctor part of the code. Again, really sorry to any audiologists. So again, all of those little pieces come together, and you attack them individually, and you piece it together, and finally you get all 1,500 lines of code here. So basically what I did was I took a hearing test, I took the soundproof booth, I took the audiologist, I took the results of the hearing test, I took the hearing aid, and I took the audiologist that programs the hearing aid, and I put it into one low-cost, less than $60, integrated device that's both a hearing test and a hearing aid, and it's completely open source, which means everything I use is available on the internet, and you can find the schematic yourself. So why does it matter? This is a great idea and all, but like, what can you do? Well, my takeaway was you can do pretty much anything with the internet, like anything. So I went into this project not knowing how to program. I didn't know basically how to use my computer, honestly, and I learned how to program off the internet for free. Everything I did here was free. So I use Code Academy. I recommend everybody here learns how to program, even if you never use it. It's just a good thing to know. And then I started working with Arduino. So the Teensy is an Arduino-based device. Arduino is just a company that makes these pieces of electronics. They're made to teach people how to program, use electronics, and just become educated. I recommend everybody try to use one of those. And really my big thing was just to make something. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to start, things kind of work themselves out if you just get started and attack the problem. That's it. Thank you.
Wow.
Board Vice Chair Diane Porter, please congratulate Booth Khan joining in the recognition, Assistant Superintendent Amy Dennis, and Principal Jerry Mays. Excellent presentation, thank you. Dr. Hargens and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening.